What's up, guys? In today's video I'm going to show you how to make these $20 side skirts for any car out of baseboard or siding from Home Depot or Lowe's or in a similar store like that around you. Mine is made out of polystyrene, which is kind of like a foam-like material, but it's still really strong. I'm going to put up right after this clip the exact kind, like the picture of the label of what I used. So let's get started. So the first thing you'll want to do is measure the length of your side skirt, which I just held mine up against there and just kind of press it up against my mud flap and then marked it right here wherever it ends. But you can use a tape measure, or another trick you can use is get some painter's tape and put it along here and mark the end with a Sharpie, and then go all the way across to the other side and tape it there, and then mark that with Sharpie, and then you can put the tape on whatever you're using for your side skirt and then just cut it there. But I have mine marked with a little indentation right there. So next, what you want to do is cut it wherever you need to. I'm just going to be using a saw and cut it right there, or maybe even just a Dremel. And then after that, I'm going to measure it up to here, and before I paint it, I'm going to make sure everything fits perfectly and do all the test fitting before I paint it, so I don't scratch it in that process. And I'll have all the holes drilled and everything for the screws. And then I might also fill the end of the side skirt, because these ones are kind of like a hollow, like foam type material. I'm not sure yet. It'll probably be fine unless there's a coat of paint on it. But I'm gonna go ahead and cut this to the right length and then measure it up to make sure everything fits correctly, and then we will get the holes drilled. So I cut my piece and then sanded it down with some 60 grit sandpaper at the end, and now I can test fit it to make sure it is the perfect length. I'd also recommend cutting yours a little bit longer than you would like, so you can just sand down the end if it's not long enough, which is just kind of hard to do with just one hand, but you can see kind of what it will look like. But mine looks to be the perfect length. So what I'm going to do now is stack some stuff up, probably like right here, to like 3 things that are about the height of this, so I can kind of press this up against here. I tried using tape once before and the tape wouldn't hold it, so I might use a little bit like a mix of duct tape and just stacking some things to get this to sit where I want it. And then I will mark all of the holes underneath with a Sharpie, and then I will go drill just small little pilot holes with the drill, and then I'll go back with the self-tappers and self-tap it in and make sure that everything is in just how I would have it mounted, and then I'll take it off and we will prep it for paint. So I use these 2 stacked boxes to mock it up and align it where I want. So now I'm just going to take a drill and drill straight through this right into the side skirt, and then I will put a self-tapper in there, and then I'm going to move down to this side and do the same thing, which I don't have a ton of room to actually put a screw there because there's like a hole for the jacking point. And then once those 2 screws are put in, I'm going to just move my way down and get all of the holes for all the screws in. Then we'll take the box away and make sure I don't need to do any final adjustments, and then we can take it off. I'm just going to trace this piece onto the other piece right there, so they'll be the same length, and then I'll just cut them and prep them both for paint, and then we will paint them. So here are my side skirts. You can see under there I used self-tapping screws. I drilled a hole first, and then I just used a screwdriver and put the self-tappers in by hand, because the material, I wasn't able to find like a good hard, like, or the PVC material that was wide enough this way to have enough room to actually screw into the side skirt. So I ended up having to choose like this styrene, which is basically styrofoam. Like when you drill into it, it sounds like styrofoam, and it's not the strongest stuff in the world, and I don't even know if it's waterproof. So that's why I'm going to try to cover this right here. But it's on pretty solid. It'll stay on there, and after I get it painted, it'll look fine. But it does make a huge difference in the way the car looks, and the one I chose kind of has this little design in the end that I thought looked better than just like a flat piece of the material. So now that I have it completely mounted on and I know that everything's going to work, I'm going to take this one off and then trace it onto that one right there. So I'll probably have the holes in the same spot, and I'll also have it the same length. And then we can take it off. I'll sand it with some 600 grit sandpaper just to rough it up a little bit so the paint can bond. And then we'll put a coat of black paint on it, and then we'll be able to put them on probably until they break, or I scrape them after I lower it or something. But that's the main reason I'm not buying like a nice expensive kind or like a carbon fiber side skirt, because I'm going to be lowering the car soon, and I don't want it to, like, if I hit a curb or scrape on a speed bump or something, or even if someone like else is getting in the car and they step on it, like, you never know what's going to happen. So this way I just don't have to worry about them. I can just, in about a day, I can make a whole new set, and it's only $20 for the whole set. So I'm going to go ahead and get started taking this off, and I'll get the other set made, and I'll get back to you once I'm ready to start painting them. I ended up deciding that it would actually be easier to just go ahead and take this side off and paint it and get this one completely finished and put on, since this side of the car is jacked up. So I'm just going to show you how to do this with one side skirt, and then you can just copy the process for the other side. So I'm going to take this one off and paint it, let it dry, and then I'll just put it back on. This material I have is kind of hollow, so it seems like the paint is going to bond to it fairly well. So I'm just going to sand it a little bit to smoothen it out and make sure that it'll bond. And I'll probably just put a few light coats on it, because I'm not expecting these to last a super long time, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time making them perfect and like polishing them or anything like that. So I'm just going to take them off and get them sprayed with some black paint, and then we will put them back on to see how it looks. I have it all sanded with 600 grit sandpaper, and I'm just going to spray it with a quick coat of this Rust-Oleum gloss black paint that I got at Lowe's when I bought these. You don't really need any kind of special paint for this stuff, because it seems to, like, it's not super smooth. It almost, I don't really know how to describe it, but it feels like it'll take paint well. But it kind of depends on what you choose, because you have several options depending on like the shape and everything you want when you go there. But really, you just kind of look in the section that has all this type of stuff and find something that looks good for your side skirt, and make sure to measure ahead of time so you know the length you need and the width, because I didn't want the screws to be right here, because then there's not much up against the car actually being screwed in. So I have it here where the screws have like a little bit of space on either side to be screwed in. So I'm going to spray it with a quick coat of this Rust-Oleum black. I'm going to start with just a light coat and then do 2 thick coats, and that should be enough, and then we'll screw it on. So the paint is mostly dry. As you can see, it's not a perfect paint job, and I guess the sanding didn't really get out all of the stuff that was on there, because when I had these in my car driving home from Lowe's, I taped them together so they would stay together, because I had them like sitting up against the seat so they wouldn't like move around when driving, and the tape, I guess, left residue, but that's okay. I can always take them off and repaint them, I guess. But I'm just gonna go ahead and put this one on. I mean, it's pretty much dry. The paint's still a little bit sticky, so I might let it dry just a little bit more, and then I will put it on and show you how it looks after it's lowered back down on the ground. And that'll be the end of the video, and then I'll do the other side. So I guess I'll let this dry for a little bit and then just go put it in. And if you're using the same material that I'm using, don't drill in the self-tappers. Do it by hand, and don't do it too tight, because I could feel it kind of crunching this material earlier when I was doing it. So just put it in where you have enough screws to hold it in, and just have them all snug so that you don't actually damage it, because even if you're using plastic, if it's too tight, it can crack or break. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on, and I'll show you what it looks like after it's off the jack stands. So here's what they look like when they are on the car. They're still pretty shiny, even for just putting a few coats of paint on without polishing it or anything. and I used probably about 8 or 10 self-tapping screws to screw them into the side skirts, and they are pretty sturdy. I actually am soaking an extra piece of this in water just to make sure that it's waterproof, because it is foam, and so far it's been in like water for about an hour and it's holding up just fine, so I'm not really worried about these getting wet. And really the only thing I'm worried about is they're the lowest point of the car now, in the middle. So if I were to go over like a hump or a speed bump and scrape, it would scrape these, which I guess is better than scraping anything else, because this whole side is only $10, so I can easily replace it. And I think they look really nice. They will definitely look better once the car is lowered. I have coilovers coming within the next week or two, and I'll get those installed and have a video on that. They're the Raceland Ultimo coilovers. But for now, it looks really good. It kind of makes the car look a little bit lower, and especially when the car's lowered, it'll look nice. And I was actually thinking of making some fins or something for like the back right here, but I don't know if I will now. I think it looks pretty good how it is. I mean, it does kind of look a little weird since it's perfectly straight, but for the price, you can't really beat it. So that's how to make $20 side skirts for any car. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.